Now, this meeting is going to be recorded for any of the parents who may be working or folks who are away who are not able to be here at this meeting. This meeting is being recorded, so just FYI. And then I would also ask, we have a pretty significant agenda that we want to get through. There's a lot of, as you can imagine, health updates and protocols, both from Georgia Tech, as well as some other people that we've been kind of keeping tabs with. So we're going to go through a lot of information. We would ask that everybody please use the chat bar in the right-hand side to ask any questions at any point. We'll be getting to questions at the very end of our meeting. And so if we have any questions, it's going to be much easier for me to kind of collect those, and then we'll answer them at the end of kind of each section that we'll be talking about. So if you've got a question, jot it down in the chat bar, and that way we can make sure that we can get to everyone that we need to get to in an orderly fashion. And I will be letting people in through the weight room as they pop on. So we're good to go. So that's my intro. Coach Mike, you want to take it away?
Hey, everyone. Hope you all are doing well. Glad to see everyone. We have a pretty, we have a lot of information to cover in the agenda. So I'm going to try to move through it as quickly as possible. I'm going to try to set a record and talk for less than 40 minutes. So everyone can, I can hold your attention as long as I can, and then you guys can answer and ask away, and we can do the best we can to address any concerns you have. Okay, so, we are returning back to Tech on Monday. And, we really didn't have a lot of updates to give you because they were sort of, throughout the summer, they were really non-updates, even leading up to the last week and a half. There are different organizations involved in the process of reopening Tech, so basically there's the university president and that group, the governing body, who has to make a decision as to whether or not to open up the facilities, and their concern is liability. And then you have Georgia Tech Athletic Association, where they have to make sure that the swim team has its space. And then you have the CRC, who are in charge of keeping Georgia Tech, the Macaulay Aquatic Center, running. So there are a lot of different entities involved. And within each organization, there were layers of bureaucracy that I do have to credit the aquatic director to, that she kind of pushed through and fought through to make sure that we could open. So with that being said, I'm going to first talk about the phase one, which is what we're in for our operations and opening for Georgia Tech. And first off, we've sent the schedule out. You have that. We can resend it if need be, and we're going to post it on the website if it isn't already. But the operating hours for Tech are 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. through Monday through Friday. Saturday, we're going from 10 to 1. And then Sunday, for now, it's closed. The biggest thing I want to say about the opening and where we are is MAAC was largely, we really weren't impacted too tough, with the exception of Tuesday and Thursday morning. That our workout, we just got the notification today that workout will go from 6 to 7, with a possibility of moving it to 7:30. The issue with that, and this mainly impacts our MRC swimmers, is that there's an NCAA guideline, an NCAA rule that in season, college swimmers cannot be on deck or even in the same space as our as age group or club swimming. It's just a rule, a guideline, so that we're not unfairly influencing swimmers to somehow recruit and go to Tech. So that's one of the reasons why you'll see some changes in those 2 days, those mornings. But by and large, we really aren't too impacted by a lot of the changes. I think the size that we have at the pool works for us, where we're not having to super small down. And I think in actuality, this year the swimmers and the teams have a little bit more space because of the way we stack the schedule. But I want to dive into the opening guidelines and sort of all the pieces around safety. The lanes that we have at Tech are 9 feet wide. There's still social distancing guidelines at Tech that require us to be 6 feet apart. The maximum number of swimmers per lane is 5. And so the way we can do that is one swimmer at the wall and one swimmer about 15 feet away at the flags, and then the same on the other side with one swimmer in the middle. So we will have to swim like that, at least for now, during phase 1. The CRC and and Tech, and to some extent the government, sort of sets those parameters as to how many people can be in the pool. For us, it's 5. It's much more restrictive for the athletic department, which I think is 2 or 3 per lane. So that's good for us. I mean, we can fit everyone in the pool. As coaches, we're going to be in charge of maintaining social distance. So we have to make sure that our swimmers are 6 feet apart at all times. That's whether you're coming in for, dry land or, how we get swimmers in and out of the pool. We really have to make sure that we're taking care of our swimmers because, number one, we don't want any transmission between the swimmers. And number two, parents are picking up swimmers. Grandparents may be picking up swimmers. So we really want to make sure that we do our best to kind of mitigate or just lower the amount of risk or possibility of transmission as best we can in our current situation. So swimmers must wear masks at all times, up until the time that they jump into the water. We recommend you bring a Ziploc sandwich bag so that, and put it in your swim bag so that when swimmers walk up to the pool deck, that before they get in the water, they take their mask off, put it in their Ziploc bag and put it in their equipment bag and then swim. Anytime they need to use the restroom, they can climb out, put that mask on, and then go to the restroom. So anytime you're walking away from the pool, we want you to have a mask on. And the coaches will make sure that we reinforce that. Okay. The other thing is you won't even be allowed in the building if you don't have a mask on. So the locker rooms are restricted. Swimmers can arrive in their swimsuits and leave in their swimsuits. You cannot deck change. You cannot wrap a towel around your swimmer. Doesn't matter the age. It is against USA swimming guidelines. We have been told, and it's something that they've been really talking about is do not have your swimmers deck changing on deck. Please don't do that. Again, no matter how young, the swimmer is, one time I had young children and you were trying to get them changed, get them in their PJs and get them to the car, but we cannot do that. So the best thing you can do is, when the swimmers come out of the pool, just have, shorts or pants, depending on the season, and throw those on, try to dry off as best you can. You just cannot remove a suit on deck and put on underwear on deck. We are not allowed to do that, okay? Again, during dry land, swimmers must bring their own yoga mats. I mean, we will be able to, do some work on the floor, and we're thinking about dry land and trying to minimize contact in terms of, where things that we take for granted, like passing med balls or using the same equipment. We're trying to be really thoughtful about that for dry land so that swimmers aren't, so they're not, 5 people aren't touching the same med ball. It's just, we're going to do our best with that, but you must wear a mask and you must bring your own yoga mats. And you can find yoga mats online, Amazon or Dick's Sporting Goods. They're really not that expensive. There's a ton of places. You go to Walmart and find a good yoga mat. Nothing fancy, nothing special, just something to keep a barrier between them and the ground. On entry, parents, we are going to do temperature checks for everyone. And the ruling is if you are above 100.4, they will not allow you in the building. And that is just a hardcore full stop. There's no exceptions to that rule. I know this summer what we had was that swimmers were trying to come into the pool area. Sometimes they were standing in the sun so their forehead got hot. So they will retest you. because sometimes you may have to walk all the way from whatever parking lot or wherever you parked. It's still hot in August and September, and now even in October. So they will make accommodations. So if you get tested and you know, hey, you were hot, then they'll test you again and you should be fine. But if you're not, if you have that temperature, then they will not let you in the building. So the other piece is coming in, they're going to have, they started laying down arrows now in terms of entering the building. They're going to put down directional arrows in terms of where you need to walk and where you need to exit. So you must follow those guidelines. That was something that was expressed to us by the head of the entire facility in a meeting. He said, your parents and your swimmers must adhere to the guidelines, because if they don't, and if we are just sort of willy-nilly and we you know, sort of try to skate the rules, they will shut it down, right? And so we've got to really pay attention to that. There will be that we will have it staffed, and CRC will be staffed, so that in the event that you have questions or you don't understand something, you're more than welcome to ask the folks at the front desk or at the desk where you buy your parking permits. They will help you out. They'll make sure they direct you in where you need to go, but they will have arrows on the ground. They started laying them down now. All of them aren't there, but they will have that for you. And there will be people, we'll have you know, employees there from the CRC helping out to direct everyone. There are two drop-off spots. One spot is in the front of the building walking through. I think honestly that's probably the best. The other is a drop-off spot on Tech Parkway, so the street behind the pool. The problem with that is that it's busy at 4:30, 4:30 all the way to 7 o'clock, and trying to drop off, it's going to take you forever probably to drop those kids off, because there are other activities that are happening at the CRC, and there are other teams that are training at the CRC. So I think your best bet is to enter through the front of the building. That'll be the easiest way. You won't have, I mean, you'll park, but it's going to be easier unless you want to sit in line on Tech Parkway and allow your child to walk out and do a check-in that way. You may sit in traffic, but your child will get to practice. So it just depends. That's a personal family choice. You know, it's going to go by age of the child and making sure they know where they're going, because the people that check in, if you have a 6 or 7-year-old, they may not take them all the way to the practice. They're just there to check temperature. The other piece is for stadium seating. So parents, you will be allowed to sit in the stands, but they will have portions of the stands that will be cordoned off. And all they're asking is that we social distance. So again, that minimum distance apart is 6 feet. So if you can stay within 6 feet and you know, or stay outside of that 6 feet range, then we should be fine. And we really don't have a ton of parents that are you know, that stay for practice. Some do, some don't. It's a personal choice. But so from the stadium seating portion, you can sit, but you just cannot sit close together. You're gonna have to space out, you know, and that's just the new reality. That's something that we're dealing with at Tech, where we are, you know, at the college, because we can't use the team room. There can only be 8 people in the locker room at a time. So there's all these different things that everyone across campus and across the community is trying to adjust to. And then in terms of walking your swimmers in the building, you can walk your swimmer down all the way to the pool deck. But as soon as you drop off, you have to head back up into the stands or work out or whatever it is you want to do. When I mean workout, I mean outside, unless you are a member at the Georgia Tech facility, because we can't do that either. So you can bring your swimmer down to the pool deck, and then you can walk down to pick them up. So that's something that they wanted to make they wanted to accommodate the parents for. That's a big question that we had, because we have young swimmers and sometimes they need help just getting ready. And sometimes I don't know if there are carpools anymore, but there were carpools in the past. And so that's an interesting part that we're trying to work through. The main thing is they just don't want crowding on the deck. they're allowed to have about 150 people in the main area competition. So it's limited. So they're letting our swimmers just do a very short time frame to come on deck. And I mean, parents, a very short time frame to come on deck and leave. And then in terms of parking passes are now available. They were supposed to be available this week, but there was really no one there to staff it. But next week, when we go back, you can purchase parking passes at the front desk. The one thing they did say was that August will not be prorated. A parking pass will be purchased you can purchase for the year or for 3 months. They strongly recommended purchasing a parking pass for 3 months because we're trying to feel this out. We want to make sure that we stay safe. And so we don't want you to buy a parking pass all the way through the year, and for some crazy reason, people are not, adhering to the rules and they have to shut the whole thing down. So again, purchase your parking passes, for 3 months at a time. And I think that'll be the smart way to go. Okay. So our policy on COVID-19, this is a very serious, challenging time for everyone. And again, it's not so much the swimmers that we have are at a huge risk. Most of them are not in that huge sort of risk population, but again, it's everyone else, and so the thing that the best advice, and this is something that we'll talk about with our coaches in our meeting this weekend, is, you have to pretend as if you have COVID and you don't want to get anyone else around you sick, and it's not about the individuals that are, it's not about the individuals. It's not about the swimmers on the deck. It's not about you individually. It's about everybody else around you. I think that's the biggest way to think about it. Is it's a village. It's a community. We don't want to do anything to get anyone else sick, And so one of the things that if you do test positive for, if you're feeling sick, if you're feeling nauseous or all the symptoms, and we'll post that on the website. I think everyone has that information, but I think it's good for us to have it. If you do have any symptoms that you think may be related to COVID, by all means, stay at home, get your swimmer or get your family member tested, because that keeps everyone safe. It is not something to play with. We have, members on the team who may have diabetes, who may have heart conditions. In my family, we have those underlying conditions. I don't want to endanger them, and I don't want anyone on our team to be negatively impacted by that. We did a great job this summer in social distancing. I think we can do even better, but we haven't had any positive cases or instances of transmission. So I just want everyone to take it seriously. But if you do come down with symptoms, we ask that you go get tested. And if you do have a positive test, of course, it's a 14-day quarantine. And one of the things that was explained to us through our chief medical officer at Tech was that there are false negatives and false positives. And so the one thing that you can test every day, but the test may or may not be accurate. There's a saliva test. There's a test where they go through your nostrils, and that's a painful experience. I've had it. It's terrible. But for 14 days, if there's no symptoms, or if you're past that point, that's when it's safe to come back in. And so that's something that we just ask that you observe. I know it would be terrible to not be able to get in the water, but it'd be worse to pass the sickness on to someone else. So those are our parameters for right now. I mean, it's really sort of common sense. Is just common sense in this day and age, because this wasn't the case, last year this time. Wear a mask, follow directions and the rules in the facility. They are, be mindful and try to be as patient as you can with the employees. I've expressed the same thing to the CRC, is let's try to be mindful to the parents, because what happened when COVID hit is they had to terminate a lot of lifeguards and a lot of employees because that facility lost a ton of money. Tech lost a lot of money. Everyone lost a lot of money because they just couldn't operate. So there's no meets there. There's no one renting the pool. So a lot of the employees that you see aren't just people that could bring back in. They had to be hired, and so they're learning the process. So just we'll during the first week, I'll be upstairs in the lobby just to help out, and they've given me as much information as I can, as they can, in terms of the operating procedure. So I'll be there in the lobby just to help out, making sure that everyone has the information that they need, and everyone is led to the right place in the right pool. So that's sort of where we are now. We're going to email all this to you. But again, like I said, we just did literally the updates were changing daily, and they were non-update updates. It was like we still don't know what's happening, and that was sort of where we are. So that's that. The next thing I want to move into is
Coach, if I can just jump in real quick before we start talking about swim meets, the competition, kind of our training philosophies here. There were a couple of questions that are really easy answers that we've gotten. Is a negative test required to join the team? No, we have no testing requirement to join the team. So if you are a new swimmer or a returning swimmer and you want to register, you can do that. You don't have to prove a negative test. Do you need an ID to access the pool deck? To my best knowledge, they will still be issuing our swimmers kind of those buzz cards that we had last year. And I will send out an email with detailed information on how we get those buzz cards and parking passes, all of that. I don't believe that method has changed. So we'll be sending that information out to you after this meeting in an email. And we'll answer other different registration questions a little bit later on in this meeting. But then 2 questions, Coach Mike, that I think you can answer. Can you talk a little bit about ventilation on the pool deck, air circulating, all of that? And then do you know if the Georgia Tech gym is open to Tech students at this time, or like what that looks like? And I assume that question is meaning the athletic, the workout facilities that are still in the CRC, not the pool itself.
Okay, great. So yes, so I'll answer the question. Wait, let me answer the question about the air ventilation system. So yes, so we have last year. So first of all, the facility had to be tested to make sure there was sufficient airflow. The last year they replaced 2 of the sleeves, and basically the CRC has said that in terms of air ventilation and air filtration, it has been it has passed muster. It's well above what is needed to process. I can't remember the exact amount of air that's processed every hour, but we have no issues with that. Part of it too, that the thing that helps us is one, wearing masks, social distancing, but it's a big space. I think from the floor of the deck to the ceiling, it's probably about 30 or 40 feet high. So that gives us a lot of room to sort of let that dissipate. But there's also, we have ventilators on deck. We have fans on deck at the deck level on the other side of the pool and underneath the stands that it's constantly sucking air out. So engineers did a great job of hiding a lot of that infrastructure, but they're huge. On the other side of the pool, there's a fan in every single room that you see, or every set of doors that you see, that is exhaust fans that are pulling air out, as well as what's on the ceiling and above. The other thing too is with regard to cleaning. The pool is shut down twice a day to do a full-on cleaning. And it is very detailed. It is because we're the tech team is swimming there now, but they go around and they clean the blocks, they clean the deck, they clean anything that they think someone is going to touch. They've even gotten to the point where they prop open doors because they do not want you grabbing handles. And so I hope that answers your question on air filtration. With respect to the gym, the CRC, the gym is open, but the last thing I heard, which was Wednesday, was that they are going to have times in which you can sign up to use the facility if you are a tech student, or if you, if you're a tech alumni and have a family membership. You actually have to sign up for a time slot to use the gym. So we're waiting on information. It's supposed to open August 10th, but we still haven't gotten a ton of stuff. And I think it's just because they are preparing for the opening. All right. So I think those are the two questions, right, Kathy?
Real quick. Okay. Yeah. And then the other, and we just had one more coming in about will we stay at phase 1 to keep everyone safe, or are we hoping to get more kids in the pool even if local numbers continue to increase? So Coach, I mean, you can certainly speak to that. I'm also on a board for for those of you who don't know, my other job with several members of the CDC, and we had a long conversation about how Georgia seems to be killing the game right now with numbers increasing. So yeah, Coach, will we stay at phase 1 to keep people safe, or are we hoping to get more kids in the pool? We'd love for you to answer that.
So we are currently, as we have last been updated, not only through the CRC. The CRC, I'm sorry, parents, I didn't say this before. The CRC stands for Campus Recreation Center. So that is the building in which we swim, the Macaulay Aquatic Center. So to answer your question, it goes to who owns that pool. The athletic department does not own the CRC. The school owns the CRC. So with respect to decisions that are being made about moving from phase 1 to phase 2, those are determined by the president and that the board of directors and that group, right? We have a partnership with Emory, and we are closely advised by the CDC. So even getting us, it was a Herculean task getting the tech team into the facility. So the fact that we were able to get in was good. And the reason why we were able to get in and use the facility is because swimming, compared to all other sports, is a very low risk of transmission, because of you're not in basketball and football, you're having to touch people, right? In soccer, you're having to bump up against people. Swimming, you don't have to have that. And so the risk for us as swimmers is when our swimmers leave the pool. That's when the risk comes in. And so that's where the restrictions and a lot of the procedures and everything that was put in place was done to address how families and swimmers and students enter the building and how they exit the building. And that is the reason why they said, look, no locker rooms. Like, you can use the restroom if you need to use it, but you cannot be in that locker room. You can't take showers. You can't get dressed in there. Do not be in the locker room, right? So I think those are the things that helped us get open. What will determine the future is really what happens at the school level. And so what's happening on the school level now is that students that come into town are not required to quarantine, because it basically the CDC and the guidance we got from the CDC and Emory was, it doesn't even make any sense to do that because there's so many students that are coming on campus. But what they have set up is a way to, we have a dorm set aside for quarantine specifically. So really, unfortunately, whether or not the actual school stays in session, we are dependent on our 18 to 21-year-olds to be very responsible. So I hope that happens. But one thing that we have seen is police forces, security guards, everything. About 6 weeks ago, there was a frat party, and the police came and busted it up. So they're putting in place a lot of rules that will get students sent home. So to answer your question, we will stay in phase 1, I think, for probably the next at least 6 months, the next 2 quarters at least. Football is moving forward, but I don't think we're going to have spectators, at least in Georgia, but there may be spectators depending on the state that you go to. So I hope that answers your question. We'll probably be in phase one for a while just because the CRC does not want to lose that revenue. And the athletic department and the university, or the institute, excuse me, does not want to, they don't want to lose. I mean, they don't want to take any risks. They don't want students getting sick. The biggest thing when you think about organizations is liability. If someone gets sick and, they were found to be negligent in some sort of way or endangering students, then they just don't want to have that risk. So as long as everybody social distances within the facility, the greater community, that's a whole nother deal where we have a governor suing a mayor and all that stuff. That we can't control that. But what we can control is how we act inside the facility. And for now, we'll probably be in phase one for a while, I would suspect. But again, it doesn't really impact us because our numbers will work for the lane space that we have.
Absolutely, yeah, and know that our one of the perks, and I've been saying this since April, one of the really big advantages that we have here on the MAAC swim team is we're a small team, and we're actually a small team by design. We believe that we have the most exceptional coaches in the state of Georgia. We have the most exceptional coaching staff. Mike would say in the nation. And I agree with that. I love that. And one of the things that we love is the fact that our team is small. So that actually is going to work to an advantage for us here. We're not going to have to be like some of these other teams who are having to learn about rolling in phases of practices and different groups and different things. As of right now, with the numbers that we've been given and the numbers that we have registered, thankfully, you're going to be able to safely socially distance given the facilities that we are in and the numbers that we are. And then final question before we will move on to talk a little bit about meets and kind of what that looks like for us as a team. Why is it, Coach, that we at MAAC and as a special user group of the CRC have more swimmers allowed per lane than the athletic department? Did we misunderstand that the first time that you said that, or is that an NCAA rule? Can you talk through that a little bit?
Absolutely. So the athletic department is, this is a different time. I think, one of the things that's happened is with all the protests, with everything that happened, and what's happening around the country is athletes are starting to voice their concerns about safety, protocol, all those different pieces. And so, and long story short, football drives the athletic department. That is a fact. We exist because football exists. And every Olympic sport, which is a non-revenue sport, exists because of football. So a lot of the restrictions that are put in place for Georgia Tech are there to keep the athletic department as safe as possible. Additionally, for Tech, unfortunately, we have had to educate leadership in the athletic department because they do not know swimming, right? They know when we hit we have All-American or how well we do at ACCs or NC2As, they know the coaches, they're really supportive, but no one, our facility is way far away from every other facility. No one comes down. Like one of the chief medical officer that I spoke with today, when I was talking to him about risks, he was like, so when you get in the pool with the swimmers and you teach them how to do strokes, I was like, yeah, they're 21. That's for the young ones, right? So they don't really understand swimming. But the other part of it too is we have 20 lanes, 32 if you count the diving well, where the Tech swimmers have use of, but there's 60 swimmers. So 2 to 3 per lane fits exactly what we need. And so once we were able to educate them and show them USA Swimming's model on what the pool should look like, the 2 to 3 per lane was what the athletic department requested because they have a sort of a different set of circumstances. Like if someone gets sick and they can't swim, we still have to pay scholarship. The athletic department still has to pay the scholarship. So they're going to be way more conservative because there's a different there's a different paradigm in thinking about athletics and swimmers, right? So they're being overly cautious to protect everything in terms of mainly football team and then everything else that comes after that. I hope that answers your question.
Great. So keep the questions coming, guys. I'll have these, like we said, we're going to email an FAQ with a lot of these different answers. But we do want to move to the next portion of this meeting where, Mike, you're going to be talking a little bit about what the 2020-2021 season looks like, swim meets, training schedule, all of that.
Okay. So this will actually be very quick. There are no meets on the system right now for Georgia swimming. If you go to the website and pull up meets, is sort of on the right-hand side, all you see are the meetings that the LSC, the local swimming committee, has on the book. So there's a finance committee, board of delegates, and so forth. Georgia swimming is trying to figure this out. The USA Swimming is trying to figure this out. And so there's been a push for virtual meets, and meets are going to be a lot smaller. And there's going to be more potential for intra-squad meets, right? Because just as a numbers standpoint, if we're having a social distance, how do you have 1,200 swimmers on deck for age group state without a vaccine? You don't, right? And honestly, if there were a meet right now that had 1,200 swimmers, we wouldn't be going. It's not worth the risk. And I think for where the numbers are, for having that many people in that space, it just doesn't make sense to have any large meets. Like we're supposed to have US Open at Tech. I just don't see it happening. Honestly, I don't see, I don't know how the Olympics happens. I don't know how Olympic trials happens, honestly. I hope it doesn't for those athletes, but I just don't see where we are right now, not having, not having a vaccine. Like the problem with this, as it was described to me by the chief medical officer, was that, it's the sickness is there, and we don't know how it plays out in different people. There are neurological issues. There are people who get reinfected. There's long-term lung damage, So, when you have that sort of deal, there's no way I'm bringing our team to a place that can have 1,200 or 1,000 or 800. It just doesn't make sense. So that's not even a concern. Safety is the main concern. And I think this year what we need to think about is this being an awesome, fun activity in which we can social distance, and your kids are going to be taken care of in the pool, and we're going to do everything to keep them safe. I think that's where we need to think of. We are looking at having sanctioned dual meets like Spartan Aquatics, and that coach, we're good friends. We're trying to work out something where we have a very small meet. We've had meets with them before. Same thing with Tidal Wave Swimming. We've had a dual meet with them before, and we're trying to keep the meet small. The CRC, there are a lot of teams that are trying to host meets at CRC, but that's one thing that for some reason they're allowing practice, but they're not allowing even a small 50 or 60 person meet. So really, there is no visibility in the country about having a regularly scheduled swim meet. There just isn't information out there. There's virtual meets, but my thinking of virtual meets is, you can have just a time trial, have the kids get up, stand up, and swim and practice, and I think that would be enough. Because at this level, really, our age group swimmers are going to constantly develop. We're still going to train as if we are competing. We're still going to do all those things, so that doesn't change. But really, the swimmers that have the most to think about are our rising juniors and seniors, because those swimmers are thinking about college opportunities where they need to get fast times. They're getting faster. But I can tell you on the other side of things, in terms of a college coach, we are pricing that into our recruiting process. We understand swimmers didn't get a chance to go to their final meet and have their final big swim. And we don't even know if ACC championships are going to take place. 13 teams with 35 people on deck for each team. I don't see how a conference championship happens unless we have some sort of vaccine that comes in, or treatment that helps us. So for the meet schedule, there aren't going to be any meets posted yet. We are trying to find meets that we can attend safely, because part of it is, there's DeKalb County, there's Cobb County, there's Henry County, there's all these different counties, and they all have different ways that they're dealing with this, right? Different facilities will have different restrictions. And so that's what complicates the process of planning for a meet. We can't travel because, we can't take our kids to South Carolina in a hotel, or, we're even talking about travel for the college kids. You put 50 people in a bus? I don't think so, So right now there are no travel meets planned for the year. When there's a safe vaccine and it doesn't have crazy side effects and it's working and meets start opening, we'll start looking at travel trips then. But right now, our main concern is improving technique, trying to make that our practices as fun and as exciting as we can, and developing our athletes. So we don't have any meets right now. If you go to Georgia Swimming website and you pull up meets, there's nothing. There are no meets. So we're working on that, and that's the best information I can give you now about swim meets. I really think that's a very low priority, particularly if you're not at this point in time, particularly if we're not in if you're not someone that's trying to swim in college in the next 2 years, right? So if you're in 10th grade and below, you're good. Just keep on training, and that's sort of where we are. We will on Saturday have a chance and opportunity for all of our swimmers to stand up and race. What we're looking at is, okay, if we don't have a sanctioned meet, we're below our numbers in practice. Can we pay a company to come in, put, touch pads in and run a time trial and find officials? But the challenge is now there are so many people are trying to plan meets that the officials are spread thin, so instead of 4 meets in the state of Georgia over the course of a weekend, there might be 12 meets. So there's just not enough people. There's not enough manpower, and that's what Georgia Swimming and USA Swimming are trying to figure out. So we just don't have a clear path forward in terms of swim meets right now. But they'll come back. It's just not safe right now, and so if we do attend the meet, it'll be very small, and it'll be in a place where that myself and the coaching staff knows that they are taking the right precautions. We don't want to walk into a county where people don't believe in wearing masks, right? We're not going to do that. If we go into a facility, everybody is going to wear masks, and it's going to mirror what we're doing at Tech. And then for age group state, senior state, junior nationals, there's literally no information out there yet. So we're in a holding pattern for those major championship level meets. So we just have to wait and see. And as we get information, we will update it, all of our parents. But this is a great time to train. This is a great time to get in shape. This is a great time to keep developing. Our season for college for NCAA, I know Division II and Division III have postponed winter and fall start dates. Some conferences have totally canceled seasons. So that potentially could happen at Tech and within our conference in the ACC and the SEC and every other conference in between, where they will not have a season, but they'll just be allowed to train. So that's sort of the reality that we're in right now. And that's swim meets. That's all I got for swim meets. Any questions on that?
I think we're good. And of course, with all of the information, we just want to continue to reiterate and reassure you guys, this entire conversation could change completely in 12 hours. Yeah. And then again, completely 12 hours after that. So our number one priority, like Mike has said multiple times, is the health and safety of our swimmers, our coaches, and our families here at MAAC. And that will always be our number one priority, especially during this time. So as things change, if opportunities present themselves, great. We also want to let you know, if you're new to the team, you may not know how meets work here with us, but we will never, and will never continue to penalize any swimmer for not attending a meet. And so if it's a meet that we have a handful of swimmers go to and you don't feel like your child, your swimmer is safe to go to that meet, great. We 100% support your decision in that. We want to make sure that we let you know that we value you as parents, and value your family and your health and your safety there too. So those of you who have been with us hopefully know that, but that's true. But especially for those new folks who are joining us today, know that there is not any required number of meets for swimmers throughout the course of the season, whether you're 6 or 12 or 17.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. The other thing too, I just kind of want to reiterate this fact, and that is the fact that we are coming back to the CRC is awesome. So while we may not have meets, we will have training. And so that's something that and speaking to the head of the CRC, there's a head coach's call that happens for Georgia Tech. So listening to that with the athletic department, and with our medical officer and with folks on the call from Emory and CDC, swimming, we are good. The concern is football. And so the reason why that has an impact is, if the swim team, if Georgia Tech swim team is in the water right now, and speaking to the director of that facility, he's fully confident that we really should not be impacted by practices. We should be fine, training and coming to practice. We just have to social distance. That is the main thing. Wear your mask, social distance. If you have any of those symptoms, go get checked out. And that's the biggest thing. But we are good for training. Meets, I have no idea. Like we really do not know what's going to happen. And like Catherine said, tomorrow morning we could wake up and say, hey, we're going to open it up for meets of 75 people or more, or we're going to have meets where, we're going to have, it's going to take all day long, and we're going to have, 50 swimmers at a time for 2 hours, and you get 3 events. We just don't know. Right. And so that's what's still trying to be, worked in and worked out, but that's sort of where we are now. So training, we're good. We shouldn't have any disruptions. Meets, that's a different piece, because you're dealing with different municipalities, different, governing bodies. It's complicated. So next thing, I'm trying to get under my limit. Is the training schedule. So really, there's not a ton that we have on this. I mean, there's a schedule that's out there. I don't think we need to read the training times out. What we will say is that there'll be a mix of dry land and swimming. Bring your yoga mats. Make sure you social distance. Make sure you're wearing your masks. We have a different schedule this year, and last year it was a tough year for us because we lost. In our move to Georgia Tech, they were building 42 townhomes here, and the reason why we had to move was, how do we get an 18-wheeler truck in? How do we move 34,000-pound concrete blocks, and how do we, get 2 forklifts to unload? It was just that construction site where it is now. It would have been impossible to do anything, and so because of that, we moved to Tech, and in moving to Tech, we lost a lot of swimmers because people just weren't willing to travel outside of downtown Decatur to Georgia Tech, right? But the good news is the team, what we had in September of last year, we almost tripled the numbers. So yes, we are a small team. We do want to grow. We just don't want to have 500 swimmers, because then it becomes something different. Then it's hurting, and you're waiting for the cream to rise to the top, and that's who you coach. So our biggest piece is getting back to the training schedule is the reason why we had so much overlap is because we just didn't have visibility on how many people were going to sign up for registration. So now that we have better numbers and better foresight, what we wanted to do with the schedule was just make sure that there was as little overlap as possible, so that we're not having 2 groups in the water at the same time. We have 4 9-foot wide lanes. That's a lot of space. And so that's plenty space. It's plenty big for what we need to accomplish. What you'll see this year is all the coaches will be on deck. What I wanted to do this year was, and something that we talked about was, just really being able to collaborate with everyone for every group, right? We have some awesome coaches. Everyone is learning. I'm reading stuff now about, muscle contraction and how that impacts stuff. Everybody has something to learn. But what we wanted to do was make sure all of our swimmers had the attention that they need to be corrected. Technique is key. And if we have MRC in the water with our coaches on deck, then we see everything, and everyone gets serviced and everyone gets taken care of, and we pull them out of the water and we can talk about technique. And then the next group comes in and we can work on that group together. And then the next group comes in and we can work on that group together. So that's really the biggest change you'll see reflected in the schedule, is not so much having two groups at once in the water. One group may be on dry land, but we wanted to focus a lot of our energy and our coaching staff on what is happening in that pool. One of the other things that you see is one of the things you saw on the schedule was we are not training on Friday afternoon, and I'll give you the reason for this. It's twofold. While we're not training on Friday afternoon, we still did reserve the space because the cost for that afternoon was negligible. It was negligible. It wasn't a huge cost for us, and so we wanted to keep it just in case. Like we have a Labor Day or Memorial Day on Monday. We wanted the ability to swim on Friday if there wasn't a meet, right? But one of the biggest things is the schedule that we have, to accommodate 6 days a week of training is really, that's the top senior group, right? For age group competitive, advanced age group, and pre-comp, you really don't need to swim 6 days a week. I actually recommend that you don't swim 6 days a week. I think it's good and healthy to play other sports and swim. And I think that's something that is good, because when you turn 13, if you're still in the sport and you really want to dedicate yourself, ask people that have been involved in swimming. You're up 3 or 4 mornings a week early, and your child is training and they enjoy it, and it's a great experience. But there's no need for our groups AAG and below to swim 6 times a week. 5 days a week is perfectly fine. But for MRC, the reason is you have a practice Monday, Wednesday, you have 2 practices on Tuesday and Thursday, and then you have your Saturday practice. What we've looked at, and this is the conversation that we've had with coaches around the country, is as soon as we had that break, swimmers were growing. Times are much faster. There's so much that happens to a training season. It's a long season that lasts a long time. These kids need recovery. They need mental recovery. They need mental breaks. So I'm not saying that we will never train on Friday, but in December and maybe after Labor Day, after Thanksgiving, MRC, the senior group, can train more days just to up the volume, right? And do a little bit more work and to get better. But really, a lot of the swimming has to do with recovery, and not only mental, but physical recovery. And it's a big deal. And that's really the sort of the next pathway for improvement in swimming and in sports in general is recovery. That is where so much of what we're doing is focused on. How much rest do our swimmers need? How much sleep are they getting? How late are they up studying? Like, how much stress, how much cortisol in the system has an impact on how fast they swim. So we can touch on Fridays, but we really think with the amount of homework that our swimmers are doing, that are in high school, that the amount of work that they're having to do it's a lot. And so we wanted a day for them to recover, refresh, and then come back Saturday morning and have an awesome morning. So we need our swimmers to train well every day. We need them to be awesome probably 2 days a week. That's it. They need to have fantastic, incredible workouts 2 days a week. The rest of the week, they need to be good and solid, still focus on excellence, but there are 2 days a week that we really need incredible work. For MRC, the workout schedule is not designed for you to pick Monday. Okay, now I'll come Tuesday afternoon instead of Tuesday morning. That's not how the workout is designed. There's swimmers that are running cross country or doing other sports. We get that. We understand that because you're moving, you're doing something else. But if you're only swimming, the expectation is that you're at every practice, so that when you get a Friday, that the recovery actually means something. So that's sort of everything that we have for the training schedule. If there are more questions, we can sort of answer those and address those. Any questions?
Nope, you're good, Coach.
Okay, cool. All right, so next thing is I'm going to run through this fairly quickly. Coaching philosophy and training. I have a list of things that I'll mention, and then I'll have a couple of brief comments. One, so we want to do age-appropriate coaching and coach the whole swimmer and think about the entire career. And the reason why we look at that is there are swimmers who, well, let me ask you this. Has anyone ever heard of Noel Strauss? I think Matt Erda may have heard about Noel Strauss. He's about my age. Has anyone ever heard of Noel Strauss? Just a show of hands. No? Okay. You probably shouldn't, because Noel Strauss, this is sort of what is that we see in swimming. Early on, when swimmers are 11 and 12, the fastest kids in the age group, they're just bigger and stronger kids most of the time, right? Noel Strauss held every single age group record from 53 all the way up to the mile from the time for 10 and under, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. He held every single national age group record. No one has ever heard of him, right? Because he was fast when he was young. So one of the things that we look at with training our swimmers is we want to look at, the late bloomers that shine, that were really good but really blew up, like Ann Colleton, who swam for University of Michigan and was a beast in 100 and 200 breaststroke. And I'm reading a research article and her name comes up. I'm like, wow, right? So there's a lot of the swimmers that we've had on MAAC are late bloomers. And the reality of it is at 11, 12, when boys hit 13, those qualifying times for age group state get really fast. And there's a mismatch. Take a long time to grow, right? And so the thing we try to think about is developing our swimmer for the lifetime, right? If you can swim with great technique, it is easy to develop aerobic capacity and all the things that swimmers need. We don't have to get into the details of that, but it's easy to get a swimmer stronger and to get them in great shape, right? It's almost impossible, and not impossible, but it's extremely difficult and frustrating to try to change a 21-year-old swimmer who's been swimming incorrectly for 15 years and to teach them how to do it right. So we want to make sure they're doing the strokes right before we increase volume and intensity and all those things. So that's something that we think about with age appropriate, swimming. And that's something that the coaches really discuss. Parents have questions, we can answer those, right? We want our swimmers to enjoy it. We want them to have a good time. We want them to feel appreciated. Let them know that our coaches care about them beyond how fast they swim. We believe in excellence. It doesn't matter if you're 6 years old or 16. You got to do it right. And we're going to expect you to do it right every time you get in the water after you've mastered that skill, right? We develop, and I don't want to talk about energy systems, but we're going to take care of your swimmers from a training standpoint. We know the science behind it, and we'll get them going. The other thing, too, which is important about training is we train differently from other programs. We are not the same. And if you sit in the stands, parents from different programs will talk about the things they do. And if you sit on deck, coaches will talk about the different ways of training and the things that they do. There are a million ways to climb a mountain, and we have our path that we believe in. So, it's just something that we do. The coaches write all the workouts. We determine the training plan. I think that's something that we have our process. It's well informed, and we believe in, right? But it's always open for their questions that you have, and we can answer those questions as best we can, okay? The improvements that we see are not just based on time, but also, toughness, like, grit, excellence, stroke improvement, enjoyment. There are different pieces besides time because you can't always control that. And there are times in swimmers' career where they will flatline. They won't swim fast for a couple of months or a year, and then they'll have a big drop. I know because it happened to me. I didn't swim any faster for 4 years in college in 100 long course breaststroke, and then I finally dropped some time. It happens. So you have to have other ways of looking at improvement. Other pieces is we will not tolerate any negative, bad behavior from anyone on staff or swimmers or parents or anything. We have an awesome club, a great group of families. We will always make time to sit down and talk to parents if they need to, but our coaches are not allowed to bully swimmers and be unreasonable. Swimmers are not allowed to do it to other swimmers or coaches, and we do not want parents, yelling and screaming at coaches. We haven't had that, right? And so I think it's because I think we're fair, and that's just sort of the energy that we want to give out. In terms of meets, coaches will pick all of the events, right? We will make sure that we don't put a swimmer who can't swim butterfly in a 200 long course butterfly, but we want your swimmers to swim everything. There are no specialties in swimming until they get to college. We try to think about it during the end of the sophomore year because that's when swimmers may be thinking about college. But what we ask of you is that you don't look at your swimmers as butterflyers or breaststrokers or freestylers. They're swimmers, and we're going to develop them in all those strokes and distances. They're going to do it all. So we will select those meet entries. We can see them and see where they need to go. Sometimes they don't like doing those certain types of races, but they have to. They got to get exposed to the different sorts of races. So, and then that's all I have for training philosophy. There's a lot that goes into it, but we don't have to spend, forever on it. So that's something where we can answer questions that you have and sort of about our process and everything. But in a nutshell, really what we've always said is if we want great swimmers, it's about developing character. The positive benefits are going to be fast times, but really what we're looking at is, are you going to be resilient? How do we help our kids be resilient? How do we build on the great child rearing that you guys have done? How do we build on that? And how do we make that swimmer a better person? The times will be there. It'll come, and so I think that's something that you got to be patient. And sometimes their improvement is like the stock market. It goes up, it goes down, it goes sideways. But in 10 years, they're going to be better than what they are today. And we're almost done. All right. So the next piece is how do swimmers and coaches and parents work together to make our swimmers better and to make the team better. Again, we have an awesome group of parents. And I sort of have the golden rule of coaching is the coaches will coach and the parents will parent, and the twain shall not meet. We won't step over that line. We won't step over the line of how you need to raise your child. You have your children, I got my children, and that is something that we don't get involved in. But when they're on deck, we are going to coach them. And part of that coaching is if a kid is negative towards another swimmer, we're going to deal with that. And we'll let you know, and we have always been fair in that respect. So that's a big part. The other thing is you may have training-specific questions. What we ask is you're not going to be able to anyway on moving into phase one, but if you have major training questions, questions that require a longer conversation, we ask that you not have them on deck. I want my coach's energy focused on the pool and the swimmers. We will gladly set time aside to sit down with you and address any questions you have, as we have with other parents before. So that's no problem. We just can't meet at a coffee shop. We might have to meet at a park or on a porch or something. But we just do not want those conversations or parents having those conversations on deck if there's a major issue that really requires more of the coaching staff, or at least myself and Catherine, to really address any major concerns that you may have. They're just not to be handled right there on deck, right? The other thing too is I made a list of how you can support your children, and that's one is tell us about what motivates your child. You know your children better than we do. We're learning who they are, right? What's the best way that your child learns? Tell us the concerns that your child has that we need to address, about swimming or meets or any of those things. If we have that information, then we can understand how to coach them the right way. Some swimmers like to be, they like us to be tough on them, like, come on, pick it up. Some swimmers don't want to be, they feel like that alienates them. We need to know about those things, and we'll learn that as we go. And I think we have a very patient manner in working with swimmers. The other thing is tell us what issues they're having in practice. Like, are there any challenges? Are there kids that are not getting along with, or are they in any sort of anxiety or misunderstanding or frustration with practices? Let us know. Talk to us. We want to address it. And then communicate your major concerns to myself and Coach Catherine. The best way is to reach out to Catherine. I'm extremely busy, and I don't want to promise that I'll get back to you in a day. Catherine is really good at reaching out and saying, hey, we got to deal with this issue here. So reach out to Catherine first, and she'll bug me to put down whatever I'm doing and address that issue. If you feel like your needs, aren't being addressed, or you don't understand something in the process, we're more than happy to talk to you about that and help you and try to educate as much as you can about what we're doing and why we're doing some of this, why we're doing some of the things we're doing. Some of the things we're doing make sense. Some of the things may not make sense to you watching the pool. And that's how I felt when my daughter played volleyball. Some of it made sense. Some of it didn't. And then I watched 2 practices and I would go for my run. The thing that I will say that we need is one of the things about communication, a frustration that we had last year was the training schedule. It shifted. I think Justin can attest to this. There might be 3 different schedules where there's a schedule on deck, there's a schedule up in the management offices, and then there's another schedule that we have. And so one of the things that I'm going to do to address this is just meet with our aquatics director every week. So we'll know what's happening 2 weeks, 3 weeks in advance, because things do change. So any changes to the schedule, we'll make sure that you guys get that information. I just have a standing appointment right after practice on Monday to go see the aquatics director and find out, hey, are there any changes this week that we need to know about, or next week, or 3 weeks from now? So we will get those training schedules out to you as soon as we can, and well in advance. That's what we're working on this year. That's something that that I dropped the ball on last year. There's a Remind app available. It's awesome because it's a short message. If there's any short-term thing that's happening, we can let you know. We can send you the links to set up the Remind app. Neil Blue helped us out with that when we first started the team, and I think it's been helpful. So we do want to work on communication. I think the other piece is a team contact list. I think that's going to be helpful for everyone. And if parents we're going to send a Google form out where parents can say, yes, it's okay to let everyone know where my zip code is. In the future event that one day we can have carpools. But I think it's just good to have, you guys to be connected and know what's going on. I would love to have, and we're going to reach out to some parents, but we would love to have a parent from each training group be a point of contact. So we think we communicate effectively, but we don't always. And so I think if we can set up blast an email out to everyone, and then make sure we reach out to those point of contacts for each training group, parents know what's going on, and that way those 5 parents that we talk to can reach out and say, hey, we just need clarification on this event or this practice or this workout week. I think that'll help it make it a little bit better in terms of us being able to communicate. And then I think that's all I have for that. I know it's getting late. We're trying to move through a lot of this. Any questions on that part? Good?
If you are interested in being a parent point of contact for your particular swimmers group, let me know. Shoot me an email. You can write it over here in the chat. Again, I'm Catherine. 97.6% of the time, if you get an email from MAAC, it's from me.
Yes. Yeah. So, so the last piece is we have so long story short, we have in the past we would do swimathons. We want to do a swimathon this year, and we just need a small amount. We need 2 iPads on deck. You'll see us when we're swimming. And a swimathon is basically you collect money for swimmers that are swimming up and down the pool. You get paid for the amount of laps, or people donate for the amount of laps that swimmers swim. It's an easy thing to do. We're looking to do that probably mid-September, but we're just waiting on what that looks like in the new environment. But here are the things that we are looking to do. We need 2 iPads on deck, where it's something where our coaches can tap a swimmer instead of, you see sometimes our coaches are laying on the deck demonstrating freestyle, right? Or you see us making all these weird movements where, well, if they can look at a video and see what they look like and see what it's supposed to look like, we think that's just a more efficient way of teaching them how to swim properly. Technique is very important to us. So that's one thing that we would love to do for technique of taping our swimmers, and then, but also them being able to see what it should look like. And then the other piece is we have some power towers and these things called power racks. And so power towers can be used by everyone from AGC all the way up to MRC, and basically it's a pulley system. We were given a bunch of towers from Auburn University a few years ago, and we just need some replacement parts. The problem is that those parts are expensive. So when we think about spending, we don't want to, if I'm going to spend money, I'd rather spend it towards savings and, paying down debt or helping out coaches than on equipment. So this is where we could be, it could be a huge help for us to have those pieces. And those are the 2 big things that we're looking for, is something 2 pieces that will help the entire team. We'll get the dollar. It's not much in terms of dollar amount. You could probably accomplish it by if every family averaged about $50, then that will probably get us everything that we needed to have our iPads and that equipment. So we're talking a pretty small amount, and maybe even less than that. So we're just trying to do enough so that we something that will improve our coaching, and we'll get some more information about that as soon as we know how that can be managed in terms of a swimathon. So that's all I had. I'm sorry that we went a little bit over, but I know we had a lot to discuss, and I think I'll hand it over to Catherine to talk about registration and billing and those parts.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be very quick here. Nitty gritty stuff. Registration is open for the 2020-2021 season. We have a couple of different user groups that are in there. Most of it makes sense, but if you are a new family or a returning family, as a matter of fact, and have questions about that, please shoot me an email. We had a question earlier in the meeting that said, we're not planning on joining yet. We have a couple of months. Do we need to register now to reserve our spot? You do not. We take registrations throughout the course of the year. And Coach Mike and I actually spent some time chatting earlier today talking about getting a new swimmer evaluation schedule set up where we can still be healthy and safe. And so as soon as we get that figured out, we will have that lined up for you guys. There is a registration. Go ahead.
I'll say one thing about registration. We have a finite. You may need to register because of social distancing. We don't. As people sign up, then if we're allowed to have 5 people per lane, then we have 5 people per lane. We're not going to allow more people in and have 7 people per lane and get in trouble. Right. So you make that decision. We're not hard sales or anything like that. We're a swim team. you may want to think about reserving that spot because of where we are. Now, in terms of lane, this kind of goes to lane space. There's a move now with the athletic department with GT swim and dive, where we can kind of kill two birds with one stone, and that is the tech team. We want to swim long course, but they don't have 25-meter lane ropes because the width of the pool is 25 meters. They only have 25-yard lane ropes. I think we can solve the problem with a couple of pieces from Home Depot, but I don't run the facility. So long story short, if we can get, that we're working on getting 25-meter lane lines so that we can add 3 or 4 more lanes to the facility and add more space so we can do that. So we're constantly working on trying to get more lane space. The good news is we did not lose any lane space outside of the LP, but the LP is closed. There's some teams that lost, 30-40% of their lane space. And even with that, with the new social distancing guidelines, they can't fit probably 40 to 50% of the swimmers in the facility. So to answer your question, you may want to register because if we go over our limit per lane, then we can't expand it anymore. That makes sense.
Definitely. And if there is a financial thing, like that you want to register now, but you won't start swimming in October, we won't bill you until you start swimming. So if there's ever any kind of financial issue, feel free to reach out to me, reach out to Coach Mike, and we can kind of make that happen. In terms of billing, though, we will start at Georgia Tech on August 10th. We're going to go back to our normal first of the month billing cycle beginning in September. So just letting you guys know that we'll be billing the card that you have on file. And then major props and thanks to a lot of our older swimmers, especially Hallie, I know was working with Jory, and ladies, I don't know if you guys are on here, but they've been working really hard at coming up with some new team suits that we have. We're really excited about some of these opportunities that we have to work with a couple of new vendors, maybe some suits that are a little more comfortable. And in that same breath, we are also very, very aware of how many hands the suits, the t-shirts, the equipment passes through. So what we're doing, and I'm hoping to have it finalized in the next couple of days, is I've spent the last couple of weeks or so seeing if we can get everything kind of bundled together on our website and create a pseudo swim team store where you'll be able to purchase things like our t-shirts. You'll be able to purchase logoed bathing suits. You'll be able to get swim caps, those kinds of things shipped straight to you. And that way they're not coming to us as a team and then we're having to pass them out and washing them and all that kind of thing. We want to, as much as we can, eliminate that that commerce feel. So we'll send an email out to everybody once those things are going to be updated on the website. We do have equipment that is still there. Kickboards, Zoomers, paddles, those kind of things. Those links are up. Those are live. You can order those. Swimsuits are coming. Team equipment, t-shirts are coming. We'll shoot out an email with all of that, but letting you guys know we will be doing it a little bit differently this year just to kind of help mitigate some of that touching from all of the people.
The other thing I would say about warm-ups and the thing I would say is with no meets, we do want to look like a team. We want to look like a team that when you walk on deck, everyone has their warm-up on. We would love everyone to have parkas, to look like a team. And I think that's important when we go to meets, but there's no meets right now. And so we're not going to put up anything about warm-ups. We do our warm-ups through Boathouse because they're the same warm-up every year. It's made here in the U.S. and actually in Philadelphia. And so they're good quality pieces that you can buy a couple sizes big and it'll last 10 years longer. So, but I don't think the need is there necessarily right now. We may do a sweatshirt order later, but keep your money in your pocket for now about the warm-ups. Let's get in the pool. Let's get training. we have a lot. The one thing I will say is the main piece of equipment. Everyone has different, financial situations, but the main piece of equipment that we really need are the fins. You gotta have fins. That makes all. We can give you. I can get pull buoys for you. We're not trying to. We don't have a factory that makes pull buoys. There's no middleman. You need fins though. You gotta have fins. It's really important. It helps us a lot, especially in, whether you're younger and you're developing strokes, or you're older and you're developing strokes and you're developing speed. You need that. You got to have fins. Snorkels too, I think, are another big one. The paddles, pull buoys, all that stuff. Most of our MRC kids have that. The younger swimmers are still learning how to pull properly. So there's not a huge pull to get paddles, but snorkel, fins, swim trunks, cap, you're good. I think that's enough, and we can help with you the rest. So
go team. All right. If there are any other, I think we hit every question. Slam dunk, high five. I also, for those of you who were listening in the chat box, I did put the remind code for the MAAC all, which is the big remind we have for every different person on the team. So if you have any other questions, feel free to shoot me an email. Again, this meeting has been recorded, so we'll be posting this on our YouTube page, and we will be updating you guys all the time for all the different changes and all the different things that are going on. So we look forward to seeing you guys again. I love visually seeing all of you on my little screen. You're all very, very tiny, but it's better than nothing for sure. So I know I speak on behalf of all the coaches when we are stoked to be back at Georgia Tech, and we are really excited to just pound out some awesome training this year.
Hey, we thank you so much for supporting the club. We are a small club. We want to get a little bit bigger when we have more lane space. But I believe that this is the best club in Georgia, and I believe it's the best club in the United States. And I'll put anything behind it because of, one, the people. You guys, there are parents that have followed us from Cleveland Avenue to Lake Claire to Georgia Tech, and we are thankful for that and that support. And I just hope that we keep on supporting you and doing the job that you ask of us and that we want to do. And thank y'all for taking time on a Thursday evening to sit on a call, and we appreciate your patience and appreciate your support. Would not be here without you, and we love you guys, and we can't wait to see you on deck and making your kids tired and being able to put them to bed. I know there's probably some corona relief for the parents, right? So that's it. That's all I got. Shoot us any emails if you have any questions. We'll get that information out to you via email.
All right. Have a great night, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.